You can say that about other guys, but you can't say that about women. Come on. Everybody knows that. Every guy learns it the hard way, for sure. Well, according to a recent poll, here are the top 10 New Year's resolutions that Americans make. Spend more time with family and friends, become physically fit, lose weight, stop smoking, stop drinking, get out of debt, learn something new, help others, get organized, enjoy life more. However, we all know that the odds of making these New Year's resolutions and the change actually coming about, the odds aren't very good. And so with that in mind, let me offer up a few more realistic, more doable list for 2026 for you. For instance, how about this? I resolve to breathe every day. See? I resolve to watch more television. I resolve to procrastinate more. I resolve to eat out more often. Here's sort of how our willpower tends to fade over time. January 1st, I will read a good book, at least 20 good books this year. February 1st, I will read at least 5 books this year. March 1st, I hope to read a book this year. April 1st, I try to read the sports section in the paper every once in a while. Or this, January 1st, I will get my weight down below 170. February 1st, I will follow my diet until I drop to 200 pounds or less. March 1st, I will try to keep my weight right at 220. April 1st, I will make my annual trip to the mall to get some jeans that actually fit me. Or this one, January 1st, I will pay off all my credit card debt this year. February 1st, I will pay off the ones that have the higher interest rate. March 1st, I won't charge as much this year as I did last year. April 1st, I will be out of the country by the end of this year. Now, here are some kind of conditional New Year's resolutions. I will not break any of the 10 commandments unless I am genuinely provoked. I will not say anything bad about anyone unless I have something to gain by doing so. I will feel sorry for people who have less than me unless it causes me to feel guilty, in which case I will resolve to find a new way to deal with my feelings of guilt. Now I'd like to ask you for a second to rewind in your mind and run the tape back to December 31st, 2024. A little over a year ago, all right? Has anything happened to you in this past year, in 2025, that you did not expect to happen to you? In fact, let's do a little audience participation. What took place in your life in 2025 that you never would have dreamed back on December 31st, 2024? You never would have dreamed it would have happened to you. It could be a really good thing, a really good surprise. It could be something bad. But what is something that happened to you that you did not expect? Yeah, Alex?
I was driving a really beat-up old car, almost done paying it off, and then somebody totaled it. So I was able to get a new car with AC. That was really nice.
There you go. That's bad and good. You know, at the same time, Doug's got one.
I never planned on a heart attack.
Yeah.
And I got it in by the end of the year.
Well, that's good. You can use that as a tax write-off, maybe. You know, I don't know. That could turn into something good. Anybody else? Yeah, Jim?
My baptism.
Yeah, Jim got baptized. Right here. The oldest person I've ever baptized in my life. That was pretty cool.
Why you held me down so long?
We had to. We did say the more bad things you've done in your life, the longer I'm going to have to hold you under. So they said this could take a while. Everybody go get a donut, come back later, you know. Yeah, Kathy.
I was voted Employee of the Year by my coworker.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, at the Norman Public School transportation part, she was named Employee of the Year. That was pretty cool. Yeah, Debbie.
Bad one. I got hacked from my life savings. Oh, listen, but God takes care of me, and I got a new house.
And you got about half of it back, right, too?
No.
No?
No, I got about an eighth of it.
Oh, okay.
Better than nothing. Better than
Yeah.
nothing. But it was kind of weird. Weird year.
That's something nobody expects to happen when you're going into a new year. Yeah, this year I'm going to lose a bunch of my life savings. But We never know. Anybody else have something really good or really, maybe really bad, buddy?
My daughter was killed in an automobile accident.
Yep. Yeah. A couple of months ago, Heather Haney passed away. She was 30, no, 40, yeah, 40, yeah. She was, yeah, I knew Heather since she was probably about 15 years old. And she passed away in a car accident a couple of months ago. That is something, that's a nightmare no one expects. Anybody, anything else that's either good or hard? Anybody? All right. Well, I would say, yeah, who is it? Oh, yeah.
So my grandpa passed away, and he was like that to me. That was really hard, but it also coincided with me breaking a record at my company, and I was able to take my grandma, my mom, and my girls all to Disneyland, and that was the bucket list item probably.
Yeah, that's cool. That's Michaela, everybody. I would say a couple. The Oklahoma City Thunder won the NBA championship. That was fantastic for a basketball holic such as myself. And I turned 70 and still know who I am most of the time. So that's pretty good. So here we are in the first week of 2026. And none of us really knows what surprises, what unexpected things may come into our lives in 2026, right? We don't know. Will it be a great year overall? Will there be maybe a big challenge or two, some changes, some good things to celebrate, a crisis of some kind? We just don't know. And that's why I decided today, as we close the chapter on 2025 and open this new chapter of 2026, I thought I might look at Apostle Paul's famous words from Philippians chapter 3, verses 12 through 14. And how about this as the first New Year's resolution, if you want to call it that, for this year, is the awareness that I'm still under construction. I'm not a finished product. God is still working on me. Paul writes, and I'll paraphrase a little bit, I have not fallen prey to the thinking that I have arrived. I don't use the excuse, oh, look, just the way I am, I can't help it. Instead, I realize there's plenty of room in my life for God to work and make changes in me for the better. Now, in a way, I think New Year's resolutions are usually kind of negative because they focus on what we think is wrong with us, right? I'm too fat. I'm not good enough, mom or dad. I'm not successful enough. I'm too in debt. I'm not a very good Christian. Now, on one hand, we need to be aware of our weaknesses, but on the other hand, we shouldn't live our lives feeling like complete failures because we're not completely done yet, right? We still have things that we need to work on. Now, of course, it's not great to have a ton of debt. It's not good to be a bad husband or have our health negatively affected by our weight or whatever. But are those more important, really, than being a kind and loving person? Or being the kind of person that lives a life of integrity? Or having a heart for God? I mean, man, I would much rather be an in-debt, loving person than an out-of-debt, unloving person. I'd rather be an overweight person of integrity than a perfectly conditioned person who doesn't have integrity. I just don't think it's God's will that we walk around in our lives feeling defeated because we're not perfect. And perfect in whose eyes? The eyes of our shallow, superficial society? No, Paul writes, not that I have already been made perfect. And we think, oh, if I had the perfect body, if I had the perfect house, if I had the perfect face, if I had the perfect job. When he uses the word perfect, he's talking about complete or mature. He's saying, I'm not completely mature as a Christ follower yet, but God is still working on me. So if Paul can acknowledge that he still needed to develop and grow to become all God wanted him to be, certainly you and I can admit that we're still under construction and not feel too bad about it. I heard this week about a Middle Eastern guru who once said, when I was a young revolutionary, my prayer was always, God, give me the energy to change the world. And he said, as I approached middle age, I realized my life was half gone without my having changed a single city, much less the world. And my prayer became, God, Just use me to change those people that I come into contact with, my family, my friends, and I'll be satisfied. Then he writes, now that I am an old man, I have begun to see how foolish I was. Today my prayer is simply, God, I ask that you would please change me. And he says, if I had prayed for this right from the start, I probably would have had a much bigger impact on the world. So in 2026, maybe the thing isn't to write up a huge list of the ways that you want to improve yourself, but to simply, to say, Lord, I want you to work in my life in such a way as to make me the kind of person that you want me to be over time. I'll cooperate, I'll be the clay, you be the potter. But just sort of yield yourself and say, Lord, I want you to work in my life in such a way as to make me the kind of person that you want me to be. Now, how many of us here are humble enough and in touch with reality enough to acknowledge, I'm still under construction, I haven't arrived yet? Just all of us, right? Another insight found in Philippians 3 that I think is pertinent to this first week and maybe all through 2026 is the phrase, forgetting what is behind me. In other words, letting go of certain things in the past. We can't forget the past, and we shouldn't usually try, but we must learn to let go of past mistakes, past failures, past sins, even past successes. Because our past failures do not sentence us to a future of failures, and our past successes do not guarantee a future of successes. Now, you football fans, of college football fans, will probably have heard of Northwestern University Wildcats. They were the joke of the Big Ten Conference for decades. However, when they hired Gary Barnett as their coach in 1992, things began to change dramatically. In fact, following the 1995 regular season, they represented the Big Ten in the Rose Bowl for the first time in decades. Well, as they gathered for the first spring practice in 1996, a few months later, Coach Barnett announced that they were going to give away awards that many Wildcat players had earned in the 1995 season. And so he called up player after player, and he handed each of them a place card that listed their achievements. So many tackles, led the team in receptions, all conference honors, team captains, and so forth. And each player was cheered on by his teammates as he came up to receive, his award. Then one of the assistant coaches gave Barnett a place card listing the 17 National Coach of the Year awards he won for that 1996 season, 17 of them, as well as a long list of other Northwestern University records that he had broken in his tenure there. However, as the players' applause subsided, the coach pulled out a large trash can, and it was labeled, big sign, 1995. And he took an admiring look at his place card, listing all his achievements that year, and he dumped it in that trash can. And the locker room went quiet. But then one by one, the players walked up, and they dumped their place cards in the trash can. And Coach Barnett shouted a message without saying a word. And that message was, hey, 1995 was terrific. It was fantastic. But we have to go back to square one and earn it all over again in 1996. That's a good lesson. That's a good lesson. About 45 years ago, I followed what I believed was God's call on my life to start a different kind of church. A church that was committed to authenticity, that was committed to unity, that was committed to reaching out to lost people, unchurched people, and committed to loving each other. We started off with virtually nothing. No PA system, no chairs, no money. We met in a warehouse. And over the next 27 years, God did a lot of great things. Hundreds of people came to Christ. Believers discovered worship and serving and community. We gave tens of thousands of dollars to missions, and we had a great time together. And then through circumstances that I never would have predicted beforehand, 3/4 of the way through 2026, I once again was in a position where I needed to follow God's call on my life and to again build a church based on authenticity, and committed to reaching lost people and serving and sharing a vision of coming together and accomplishing way more together than we could individually. And again, we started with virtually nothing. No PA system, no money. Some of you were there the first week. We met in an old warehouse. Now, I would never take those 27 years as something on a place card that I would then later dump in a trash can labeled the past. Those 27 years were about 98% positive and 2% negative. And I wasn't willing to allow 2% to cause me to forget about the 98% that was good. On the other hand, the final page of chapter 2026, as it came to a close, it was time for me, in a way, to forget what was behind me, and that is let go of the failures and the successes of the past and open the page to a new chapter of 2027 and the years that have followed with gratitude and anticipation. How about you? In what ways might God be telling you it's time to forget certain things and leave them in the past? Maybe there's a sin. It's been in your life for far, far too long, and you need to let it go. Maybe there's some bitterness or a grudge, and maybe it's well-founded. Maybe someone really hurt you deeply or betrayed you. But you've had it against somebody, and maybe for decades, maybe just not that long, but you just can't quite turn that over to God and say, God, I can't deal with this. I want to lay this at your feet. Help me to let go of that. Maybe there's an emotional hurt. Somebody, in some way you were beaten up by somebody, and you need to leave it behind so that you can then move forward. So here in this first Sunday of the new year, I hope all of us will go into this new year with these things in mind. Number one, I'm still under construction. God's not done with me yet. He's going to continue to work on me. I'm on my way to maturity. I'm not there yet, but God's going to help me. The second thing is I need to let go of certain things in my past. What's behind me, I can't allow what's happened behind me to dictate what is ahead for me. And then this, straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize that God has called me to. In other words, I'm committing to walking with God into my future. Now, since you are here on the first Sunday of the new year, I'm going to assume that you want God to be a big, important part of your life. Right? If you're here on this Sunday, although it would be more impressive if today was New Year's Day and you were here after what you might have been doing on December 31st, the night before. All right? I saw a perfect bumper sticker for New Year's Eve. It says, laugh and the world will laugh with you. Puke and you're on your own. But anyway, you are here at church today. So how about this as a New Year's resolution? I want God to walk beside me, with me, all into and through the new year, 2026. That's what I want. Anybody here seen all the Rocky movies before? How many have seen probably all of them? All guys, I guess, raising their hands. I don't know if I think it's Rocky 33 or something now, I'm not sure. But my favorite was Rocky 3, the one with Clubber Lang. You remember that guy? Mr. T. Now, he became a Christian later, but at the time of Rocky 3, he was mean, he was intense. Well, how would you like it? In real life, if you had Clubber Lang as your bodyguard everywhere you went, you think you'd be afraid? Would you be scared to go down to Bricktown late at night? I don't think so. In fact, I think I would intentionally go to dangerous places, just hoping that someone would try to pick a fight with me and just unleash Mr. T all over them, pummel them into the ground. Well, I don't have Clubber Lang to be my bodyguard, but I do have Almighty God with me all the time, and that's not too shabby either. Paul put it this way, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. In other words, I can face uncertainty. I can get over deep hurts. I can reach my goals. I can get sin out of my life, certain sins out of my life. I could give to God 10%, even though I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. I can deal with my teenager or the failing health of my parents. I can deal with a lousy job situation. I can do all things, not on my own, but through Christ and through God who walks with me every day and gives me the strength I need. I think for most of us, our lives in 2026 are probably not going to be significantly easier or slower paced than 2025 was, right? Probably not. Our society has a way of making us feel like we're always behind. We always need to do more. And so we walk fast and we talk fast and we eat fast and we try to get through life as fast as we can. Most of us have what might be called the Martha syndrome. And this comes from Luke chapter 10. And here's what it says. As Jesus and his disciples were on the way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is really needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her. Now, it wasn't as if Mary was doing some terrible thing by being in the kitchen making food and serving everybody. That's a good thing. But here's the problem. She became so preoccupied and busy, she didn't realize that God was in her living room. You know? And that happens to us too. The busy pace of many of our lives is not conducive to being aware of God's presence in our life. A man named Richard Swanson, a medical doctor, wrote a book in which he discusses one of the major maladies of our times, the stress of busyness. He calls it overload, and he says we mostly do it to ourselves. We're overloaded with commitments. We feel like we and or our kids have to be involved in every single thing, every activity there is. We're overloaded with possessions. Our closets are full, our garages are overflowing, and we usually go into debt buying all the stuff that it doesn't really mean that much for that long. We're overloaded by work. Back in the 60s, experts predicted that due to advances in technology, that by the year 2000, the average American work week would be 22 hours long. How many of you have a 22-hour work week? I think we need to find out the guy who said that and dig him up and just beat him with our daytimers and our iPhones, right? Just like, you're an idiot. We're overloaded with information. And it comes at us from every direction at all waking hours, it seems like. And so many of us, we wind up suffering from the Martha syndrome. We're so preoccupied, we're so busy that we don't realize, hey, this is God. God is walking right beside me every day. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good thing. A guy named Max Lucado tells about a time when he was flying from his home in San Antonio to Boston to catch a connecting flight for a speaking engagement he had in Edmonton, Canada. He had actually had to change planes once already at a stop in Minneapolis. And those of you who have done some traveling, you know how exhausting it can be, right? You just get worn down on a long trip. And it was for him. The planes were crowded, the airports were crowded, there were lines everywhere. He was hungry, his back was aching. Well, as he was hurrying through the Boston airport, he saw a food court up ahead, and he decided maybe grabbing something quick to eat would make him feel better. But then he said, just before the food court, there was a bank of phones. I don't know if they have those in airports anymore. Probably don't. But he saw a bank of phones, and so he said, I pulled out my cell phone and I pushed the number 1, which was the speed dial number for home. And he said, I'm convinced that when my wife gets to heaven, she's going to be at the reception desk welcoming everyone there, because when you talk to her, she always makes you feel better. And he said, we didn't talk about anything really earth-shattering, how our days were, how the kids were doing, and so forth. And he said, just as we talked, I began to feel my spirit lift a bit. And then his wife passed the phone over to one of their daughters, and she told me about her day at school, and she finished by saying, "I love you, Daddy." And he said it felt so good to hear that. And then the mom passed the phone to another daughter who finished her conversation with, "I missed you, Daddy." And it felt good to be missed. And then they passed over the phone to the 6-year-old son, little boy, little infant almost. And he talked to her as my wife, he said, as my wife held the phone up to his ear. Have you ever done that with a baby, one of your little kids? And he said, by the time that all this happened, it was too late to get any food, so I hurried to the next gate and got on the plane. And he said, as I finally sat down, I realized I had forgotten all about how tired I was, how hungry I was, how my back ached. He said, I had called home. That's all I had done. I had called home, and it made all the difference in the world. If you have a heart to want to walk with God in 2026, that's a big thing. Just call home on a regular basis. Recognize also His presence is with you all the time. Because when you become more aware of that, it just will pick up your spirits. You won't feel alone. You won't feel like you have to go through everything all on your own. I think you'll be amazed at how it improves your perspective simply by calling home and be reminded that God is there for you and that He loves you and that He's thinking about you no matter where you're calling from. Well, now we're officially into the year 2026. And with a new year comes a clean slate. 12 months, 52 weeks, 365 days, 8,760 minutes or hours, 525,600 minutes, and 31 million and change in seconds. And during this next year, my hope and prayer is that you'll have enough happiness in your life to keep you hopeful, enough trials to make you depend on God, enough sorrow to help you to remain feeling human, enough success to keep you remaining positive, enough failure to keep you humble, enough good friends to lift your spirit, enough money to meet your needs and the needs of others, enough enthusiasm to keep you moving for tomorrow, and enough determination to follow God's call on your life. And so today, just these 3 things I hope you remember. You're still under construction. God knows you're not perfect yet. Allow Him to work in your life in such a way to make you the kind of person that He wants you to be. Maybe there's some things in your past that you've been dragging along with you, and they've been dragging you down, maybe for years, maybe for decades. And maybe this is the year you would finally be able to just kind of put that in God's hands and say, that's that. That happened. I'm okay now. And maybe this would be a good year to say, God is with me all the time. He's my bodyguard. He's my constant companion. No matter where I am, no matter how lonely I might feel at times, God is always walking right beside me. I think those would be 3 really good things to do this year. All right, let's stand. Have our closing prayer. Lord, we're so grateful that the scriptures have been preserved all these years. And we can open it up and we can hear words of wisdom, words from you, words from Jesus. And we can use those words to build and give us wisdom and to build our lives in a good way. Lord, a lot of us here, we know, are guilty of being distracted, so busy that we don't focus on the more important things in life, like love and gratitude and helping and loving others and walking with you and allowing you to change our lives over time. Lord, I pray that we would all hear today, we don't know what's ahead in 2026. For some of us, things happened in 2025 that just rocked our world. And some things that were really wonderful, or we don't know, we can't predict. We can't completely control 2026. So, Lord, I pray that we would realize you're still working on us. You walk with us every day. Our lives are in your hands. We can leave things in the past behind that are not helpful. And that we would really experience something really great this year because of your presence in our lives. I pray that in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, you guys, thanks for coming. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.